Friday to everyone. How are you feeling? Wow, I'm not even seeing the hands clapping, but I'm hearing them. I love it. To our panelists, you guys are looking lovely. We're happy to welcome you. Welcome to our Green Jobs Symposium, the best part of ECO by any part. We're happy to have everyone here. All our people online on our YouTube, thank you for joining. Make sure you put which school is signed in. Let's have our call our registry. So put which school is here. Send your comments. Remember to participate. So today I'm going to introduce our moderator, which is the one, the only, the offshore island coordinator, Shanna Challenger. So give her a big round of applause as she runs up. Yes, we're ready for you. You can do it. Physically fit. Physically fit. Come on. You're soon there. You're soon there. Wow.
Welcome to our second annual Green Jobs Symposium. Thank you to everybody who's here in person. We're glad to see you. And for those who are online on our YouTube page, welcome. Say something in the chat, give us a wave, tell us hello. So, as Janella would have just mentioned, I am privileged to be your host, your moderator for this panel today. And I am excited to introduce the people who are here to talk about green jobs. But first, Janella, we are going to start off by seeing what you think are some environmental jobs in the field. So we're actually going to ask you to take out your phones. Yes. Wait there, Miss Hunt, since when it's hard for your children, your students to take out their phones? So we are going to ask you to take out your phones, and on the screen you can see it says to go to menti.com, that's MENTI.com, and use the code 4466641. So those who are on YouTube as well, please go there. And I want you to type in the Menti and tell me what are some of the jobs you think are available in the environmental field right here in Antigua and Barbuda. You can give us a little music in the meantime, Spaniard, while they think and while they put down. Well, I know everybody must have service in 2023. Oh, Lord, y'all are broken State College. I remember those days. Well, there was always somebody in the class who had service. So the person who has service, hotspot your neighbor, man.
And if you don't have service, feel free to go on your Wi-Fi and look for Chazo Wi-Fi. The password is no free Wi-Fi. So NOFREEWIFI. Sponsored by Flow. Always connected.
All right. I'm seeing marine biologist, I'm seeing ecologist, researcher, field worker. I feel like I can get some more responses, man. So I'll give y'all some more time. Farming, okay. Veterinarian, recycling. Not sure if that's a job, but okay, recycling. Let's go, got some more. Is it y'all service providers or it's y'all? Okay, a few more moments and I'm gonna have to move on. Oh, an energy auditor. Okay. Wow. That is rather specific. Okay, and then I think we're going to go to the next question, Joe, which is, what is something that you hope to learn today? So everyone has come here. We've invited you to learn and come to this Green Jobs Symposium. What is one thing that you hope to learn today from our 8 distinguished panelists? Getting a green job. Wow, that's true. Great. Okay, recycling. Woo, recycling is really popular. I see reducing waste, current initiatives, job opportunities, qualities, which I think is probably like qualifications, jobs, interesting jobs, job opportunities, jobs, variety of professions. Seeing a common theme here. Oh, somebody wants to learn as much as possible. I like that one. Internships. Very big one, of course. And yeah, I love those responses. Thank you all so much for that. So, we are now going to jump right in to the meat of the matter. And we're going to be, let me just tell you the names of all of our panelists. And they're going to give us a little wave when I call their names. And y'all make sure to encourage them. So first off, from the sister aisle. And no, I'm not talking about Redonda. We have Mr. John Mussington from Barbuda. And he is an environmental advocate with the Barbuda Land Rights Committee. Next up, we have Miss Alicia George. And she is a journalist with Island Press. We have next Mr. Eli Fuller. And he is an ecotourism operator with Adventure Antigua. Next up, we have Miss Kelvin Spencer. And she is a graduate assistant with the Department of Analytical Services. Next up, we have Mr. Nathan Wilson, affectionately known as Nathaniel. And he is the Invasive Species Officer right here at the EAG, or the Environmental Awareness Group. Next up, we have Ms. Monifa Thomas. And she is a financial consultant. Yes, finance is also in environment, and you'll learn more about that later. Next up, we have Emil Hill. And he is a visual arts teacher and an artist. And then last but certainly not least, we have Miss Aaliyah Tuet. Aaliyah, have a lot of support in the crowd. And she is a technical data officer with the Department of Environment. So just to tell y'all a little bit about what to expect. First of all, we're going to have each of our panelists give us a very short description of what their job entails, why they got into it, and what's important and why you should get into it as well. Then we are going to have a kind of Q&A section at the end where we will be giving some prizes. Oh yes, everybody, I open up wide like a while. Those online as well, if you win a prize, we will contact you after about it. But we will have some prizes for the people who are being, very engaging, asking really good questions, and have a lot of passion, right? So one of the first prizes we're going to be giving away is some EAG merch. Shameless plug. And you'll see this little table. I know my little petite body is hiding the gifts, but you'll see this barrel that has the prizes that you could possibly win if you participate. So, without further ado, right, the next thing you can also win is a Wild Plants of Antigua and Barbuda book. Ooh. What's next, Janella? Ooh, a land bird identification card. Ooh, that's the one I would want. Ah, what's the next thing, Janella? Oh, nope. We can win, John. I didn't know you were for sale, John. Next up, you can win some eco merch, right? Because we are here as a part of EAG's environmental conference. So we would have had the first 2 days yesterday. And then we have to have a day dedicated to the youth. So you can get a branded water bottle, a reusable bag. And then this one just came up, so I don't even have that on the slide. But you can also win the very first EAG 2023 nature calendar. So, yes, you'll be able to get that, and literally nobody else in the whole country has that yet, so you will really be getting a very hot commodity. All righty, and so with that, I'm going to invite Mr. John Mussington to speak first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to all of you. It's always a pleasure to see young, bright minds that you have the ability to mold and to inspire. So that's my motive this morning. How do I inspire you to be the best that you can, and especially to be the best that you can in this field of environmental studies, environmental jobs, and green jobs, as you put it. Now, when you were asked about professions in the environmental area, you know, one that I did not see, and I don't know if it was there, good. Educator, teacher, lecturer. Because if, like me, I started in this field because I had a very good teacher in a number of areas, physics, chemistry, biology. My chemistry teacher was Mr. Eustace Hill. My biology teacher was Dr. Radcliffe Robbins. And one of the things about these people were that they were able to make things come alive. And so I believe more than anything else, that is what inspired me to eventually get into that field. I'm also an educator, so I know. The environmental field is very wide. There are a number of things that you can do. The most rewarding thing about it is that you get to use your brain. You get to solve problems. You get to be out there in the real world. Sun, sea, everything. You get to travel. I've been in a lot of areas in this world that most persons would not have the opportunity to go. I've been to Scotland, I've been to Canada, I've been to South America, most of the islands in the Caribbean. And when I go these places, it's because people want professionals who are able to look at the real world, identify certain things going on in a particular area. My specialty is marine biology, so it's on the water, diving. And what you want is a human being who can go there and be able to read what is happening and to give solutions as to what problems may arise. So going on the water, for example, you need to be able to identify every single thing. Imagine you being paid to list things that you recognize. You're being paid to have fun, because that's what it's boiled down to. I am a teacher, and that was part of my career. And I always tell people that is just something that I have to do. My real life is about environmental studies, going out there, doing consultancies. For example, you want to assess the feasibility of taking out a mangrove swamp and putting in a marina, and why is that a good idea or is it a bad idea? And you should be able to read what's going on and give the clients or the government reasons not to, or if it's going to be done, how to. Simple things like, for example, one year there was a lady who wrote in or called in on a radio station, said she has a garden, a nice garden, and here were these huge worms, caterpillars, marked, they were colored red and black. And she was like, these things, should I kill them? What am I going to do with them? I was able to respond to the lady and say, lady, be blessed that you're seeing a phenomenon that many persons do not see. That's actually the frangipani caterpillar. It only comes around maybe once every 2 years. They come up, eat every single leaf off the tree, then they bury in the soil underneath, and they pupate, and they stay there. So if you happen to see them, be blessed. They're harmless, but if it was not for a person who was competent in that area, understand the environment, understand how it is these things work, then that particular scenario could have ended badly. She went out and bought some Roundup or one of those nasty insecticides, and you know how that is. So in short, if you want to live, if you want to contribute to everybody else living on planet Earth, if you want to have an exciting life in terms of solving problems so that your brain remains alive, choose a career in the environmental field. And I would love that many of you go into education as well, because every single environmentalist or every single person here on this panel, it started in the school and somebody inspiring them to go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, John. I like what you said about how if you want to live. And that is the truth. We can't live without our environment. Literally, we won't be able to breathe. So thank you so much for that. And next up, we are going to go to Miss Alicia George, the journalist. And I'm looking forward to what she has to say about, being a journalist and writing about environmental pieces. Let's give her a round of applause.
I got fake applause. So my name is Alicia George, and I am a journalist. Shanna called me an environmental journalist. You talk to somebody else, they'll call me an investigative journalist. Someone else will call me a business journalist. Someone else will call me a health journalist. It just really depends on what day you catch me, right? Because we're not privileged to have beats, but I really am passionate about the environment. Now, EAG sent me 4 questions to ask, and they gave me TikTok time, people. That's a hard thing for me to do, okay? So in 5 minutes, I will attempt to tell you who I am and how you can get involved in journalism. Now, a lot of people think of journalists as people who write an article, right? Some people actually mistake hosts on shows for journalists, and that's a whole different topic altogether. But I am a storyteller. I am the wingman to everybody that you see in front of you. I am the Beyonce to all the Jay-Z's in front of you, which means I play the best supporting role. So, Mr. Mussington, he's a marine biologist. Oh my God, Eli, I almost forgot your name. Eli Fuller, he runs an adventure tour. And I've been on one of those. They're pretty great. But I get to tell their stories, because if somebody doesn't tell the story, nobody knows. And I know you guys were not there yesterday, but we had some really interesting stories that I didn't know. And so I said to everybody, okay, come take my number, because I can't reach all of you, but all of you can reach me, and we can share that. What do you need to be a journalist? Not much. Not much. But you do... Hey, sorry. It's funny, but it's true. You need a lot of patience, and you do need to do some research if you want to be effective. Because most of the times what we have happening in media is we're doing a he say, she say type of story, and that is not real journalism. Okay, real journalism is going out in the field. Sometimes it's hours of boring research that you really don't want to do, but you need to tell the story. You have the responsibility to society as a journalist to tell the story and to tell it right. I'm going to refer back to my notes because I want to stay within my time, and if I don't, EAG is going to have my head, I suppose. So a journalist has a responsibility of navigating through people's emotions. So it's not just about writing a story. Let's take murder, for example, or genocide. Everybody wants to know what happens, right? But you also have to be sensitive to the person that it happens to. You have to give them the opportunity to have their voices, and sometimes most people don't want to speak. So you have to bear all those in mind. You have to be the vanguard. You have to guard people's emotions while at the same time trying to do your job, and sometimes that's a very difficult thing. And then you also have policymakers and politicians whispering in your ears, Nobody wants the dirty laundry out there. So there will always be someone trying to bribe you, trying to convince you why you should write that story instead of this story. And I noticed that when you guys Googled your responses as to the kind of professions you want to see, because I was thoroughly hurt. I was not on there. But what we also need as well is sketch artists. So I'll give you a quick example. I go to court sometimes. You can't take pictures in court, but people want to mind business and they want to know what's going on, who doing what, right? That's where sketch artist comes in play. And by doing those things, we can diversify the product. We can diversify journalism. And when you put journalism on a higher pedestal, because we always say as journalists that journalists are not respected here. You go to other places and they get a lot more respect. Mr. Mussington was saying that he has had the opportunity to travel. Journalists travel a lot. We travel for training. We travel to write stories. Last year, June, I did a Latin American tour. It was an investigative tour. A select group of people went to Ecuador, Mexico, Panama, and we got to interact with other journalists. We got to see how they live. So there's opportunity for travel as well, and networking. And you don't just have to be a journalist. You can be other things. But if you're really passionate about writing and communicating your skills and helping people live better, then that is the job for you. How do we fit in with the environment? Again, we have to tell the stories. A video as opposed to an article. Maybe this side, they like to read. This side likes to watch. But somebody has to tell the story. So we need videographers. We need photographers. We need script writers. Hey, maybe one day we might do a screenplay. Who knows? But it's not just about those hardcore jobs that you guys listed. We need lawyers. I am considering studying environmental law, for example. May not be a lawyer, but I want to know what I'm getting myself into. I want to know that when I'm talking, I know what I'm talking about. Because you never, ever want to end up in a situation where you're calling somebody, especially if it's someone that's high profile. You're calling a minister and you're asking them a question, and they ask you, well, how do you know about that? Where's your proof? But, like, you want to be prepared. That is the worst thing that could happen to you, because then, one, they won't want to listen to you because you don't know what you're talking about, and you wouldn't know the right questions to ask because, again, you don't know what you're talking about, all right? So, again, I'm keeping this short. I heard some people here, see, they don't flag me. I heard some people here said they are looking for job opportunities, they want to intern. I am looking for interns, people. So, don't go home and not give me your number. I am hoping that we get some journalists on board. We don't have a lot of male journalists, and I'm looking at the two guys. The two guys in here, we don't have a lot of male journalists, so I'm hoping that you two are somewhat interested, and we do need the women as well. Guys, women are super, super, super powerful, no offense, guys, but we know how to get things done. We know how to categorize things. And so, if you want to be a journalist, come check me and we can join the whole nosy neighbor crew and do what we got to do.
Thank you so much to our audience that we can't see. But thank you so much, Alicia, for that. I'm realizing, Janella, that I'm not seeing anybody writing down anything. What's going on?
Well, I guess they don't want the prizes. You know what? These people are so smart, right? They're probably taking mental notes right now.
Oh, they're one of those mental note people.
Yeah, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, or maybe they're taking notes on their phones.
They better be.
Okay, because they're trying to save
yes,
the paper.
I see somebody has a lot of notes. Yeah.
Notes?
Y'all better pay attention.
Notes in WhatsApp?
No. She actually has notes on the notes app.
Okay,
She's ready.
Okay. Just checking, just testing the crowd. So next up, we're going to invite Mr. Eli Fuller to give us his perspective as an ecotourism tour operator. Let's welcome him.
Thank you. I'm going to try and be real quick because obviously there's not enough time in this very short symposium. I think this is so important. One of the first times I ever met Erica, wherever she is, I'm not seeing her. Anyway, was doing something just like this down at the Multi-Purpose Cultural Center, whatever you call it. It's crazy that here in Antigua and Barbuda, it's crazy that there's so much incredible opportunity here for young people, and young people don't realize it, don't know it. I mean, let me just take a little survey here. If all of you kids here, I'm sorry, I'm not insulting you by calling you kids, all you students here, if visas if visas didn't exist, you could live wherever you wanted to live, and if you had enough cash to buy a house or to move wherever you wanted to live, hands up, how many of you would like to travel and live somewhere else? Be honest, be honest. I mean, forget what this show is about right now. Be honest. So watch. There's quite a few people who would like to live out of Antigua and Barbuda. And yet this place has more billionaires, US dollar billionaires having homes here now than ever before. And every year that passes, we get more and more billionaires buying houses, building houses here because they can't find a better place to live. Now just think about that for a second. A guy I worked for this year has more billion-dollar accounts than probably most billionaires out there. Some of the world's richest people come here and charter a yacht for $800,000 US a week. A yacht. Can you imagine chartering a yacht for two million EC dollars for the week? And yet we're getting more and more of those people, and our kids don't realize it. And I'm not talking so much about what I do for a living, but I just want to just point out that Antigua and Barbuda have one of the most interesting geographies in the entire Caribbean. Think about it. How many places in the Caribbean, think about from Puerto Rico down to Trinidad and Tobago, do you have super deep water right off the shore on one side of the island? Huge shallow banks where sunlight still penetrates down to the seafloor between Antigua and Barbuda. We have so many varieties. We have some turtle people in the house here today. And Antigua, if it wasn't for Antigua, turtles that the tourists fly to go and see in some of the other islands wouldn't exist. We have nesting, foraging, and nesting, foraging, and hatching areas. I mean, there's so much environmental diversity here in Antigua from a geographical point of view. And obviously everybody knows about our beaches, but at the same time, we have a shortage of jobs. Not a shortage of jobs. We have a shortage of labor. I run boat tours, right? And my boat tours pick up from hotels. I've been involved in tourism for all my life, right? And it's so hard to find Antiguans to work on our boats. It's so hard to find Antiguans to work in the hotels at some of the top level jobs, because smart Antiguans keep on thinking they should go away, live away, or whatever else. I graduated from Academy in 1989, St. Joseph's Academy, and most of the kids who were in my class, they left. Smart kids, really smart kids. 10 CXC1s. They left, one after the other. You know why they left? I'm going to tell you why they left. They left because they don't know Antigua and Barbuda like some of us do. Some of us were privileged. You hear that word, privilege? We were privileged. I grew up on a beach just around the corner from here. So walking down to the beach, sitting on the beach, I would see our nature. I would watch turtles come up to the beach to lay eggs. I'd watch the little turtles scamper down into the water. I would see big sharks come in and give birth to baby sharks. I would see all these systems. I would see, November time coming, all these birds that I have been missing for 6 months start returning back. These are things that we don't see. Our people don't see these things. But guess who sees them? Those billionaires see them. Those tourists see them. And they're like, oh my God, you live in such an amazing place. And you're like, yeah, but I want to go to New York, really. I think we have a young man in Antigua who works for the Development and Control Authority. I wonder, how many of you guys are on Instagram? Yeah, quite a few of you, right? You seen Javez's stuff on Instagram? Javez Lee? Yeah. He's got, 178,000 followers right now on Instagram. He's a DCA, Development Control Authority. He has made more Antiguans say, oh my God, this is Antigua, than anybody else in the history of Antigua and Barbuda, right? And Antiguan people need that pride. I've always talked about it. Antigua and Barbuda have this sort of imaginary pride. Oh, we're the best place in the world. We have the best beaches. No, you don't have the best beaches. There's lots of places that have beautiful beaches. Antiguans need to go and learn what this place is. When you learn what this place is, you learn how unique Antigua is. Your pride will grow, and then you will say, well, I don't need to live anywhere else. I need to live here. Once you made that decision, then what Mr. Mustang said, if you want to live, then there's a lot of hard work you need to do. Every job in Antigua and Barbuda, bar none, up to the politician, to the prime minister, to the garbage people, to the mechanics working at Toyota, everybody here must have an environmental point of view. Sustainable development and environmental management and climate change mitigation, those things there have to permeate through every single job in this country. Otherwise, we won't live. They're right. We will not live. Antigua, I don't think people are doing a good enough job of telling us how special it is, but also how threatened our way of life is. You know, in 100 years from now, it's going to be some very, very tough times, even if we get that far as a society. And the way that we're going to survive is by young kids finding out how beautiful it is and then investing into jobs that are going to save this place and sustain it. Anyway, move on. Let's go.
Thank you, Eli. How y'all feel after that one? You better be, right? Okay. I love what Eli said. And yeah, when Gervais's page has gone up and over, and yeah, people are now saying, wait, that's Antigua. And for those of us who work and have the privilege really to work with these ecosystems today, we're like, yeah, duh. It's been like that, but for people who don't have the opportunity to go out, he's really raising a lot of awareness, and so we need to have more of us who are dedicated and inspired to not just leave with our CXC ones, but stay and help the country that has raised us, right? And so next up, I am going to go to Miss Kelvin Spencer, and we're getting real sciencey now because she works at the Department of Analytical Services. So let us welcome her. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. So yes, I am a graduate assistant, but my main qualifications, my main expertise is microbiology. Okay, so at the lab, we test and analyze water and food samples. So when it comes to the environment, and oftentimes we tend to forget those that work in the lab, what we do behind the scenes, how we test for things that we cannot see. So at the lab, what we do, we test for pollutants and contaminants. When it comes to biology, biological contaminants and chemical contaminants. Okay, so for anyone who's interested in working in the lab, definitely I hear that some persons are interested in internships. I always enjoy having interns during the summer because they're always excited working in the lab, and I love working with them. So if you're interested, definitely give us a call. So my qualifications, I have a bachelor's in microbiology, and I recently got a master's in food safety and quality assurance. So really what you need to work in the lab is just a degree in natural sciences, so biology, chemistry, molecular biology, environmental science. So once you're interested in research, because we do a lot of research, we have a lot of trainings using various machines that we have. We recently got a gas chromatographer. So we actually had some experts come from overseas and train some of the staff. So we have those sort of opportunities. And yeah, so if you're interested in the lab work, definitely check out the department. Yes, short and sweet.
I wonder how many people know what a gas chromatographer is. I'm not seeing the hands. Can you tell us a little bit about what a gas chromatographer is quickly?
It's basically a machine to help to test for pollutants. So pesticides is one of them. So yeah, it's mainly on chemical side. But for me, it's mainly microbiology. So I can't really go in depth, right? Because I wasn't even in the training really, but it's basically to help look for pollutants.
Okay, lovely. So you see, we have the people who are on the front line. We also have the people who are in the back, but still doing the work, right? Each part of environment and each role that we play is very important to what y'all are seeing and what we're getting today. So up next, we are going to go to Mr. Nathan Wilson, who's going to press the mic, the on button, and hold it for a little bit, and then it will be on. Can you check? Okay, he's gonna get some help. But up next, we're gonna go to Mr. Nathan Wilson of the Environmental Awareness Group, and he's gonna tell us a little bit about what it takes to be an invasive species officer.
Good morning, everyone. So yes, I'm sure not many people have heard of a job position such as invasive species officer. It's not something that's well known. So I'll have to tell you a little bit about it. So I'm sure you guys know that we have species that are very important to protect, like the Antiguan racer, the Redonda ground dragon. We also have birds that come over to our offshore islands, migratory birds, and so on. So part of my job is to basically make sure that invasive species, so we're talking about rats, mice, mongooses, goats, and that kind of thing, do not get onto the offshore islands. This is because they have a very damaging effect on the wildlife there. The rats have been known to kill off the Antiguan racer and lizards and so on. So one of the things I do, we go over to the offshore islands. So we have the offshore islands in the NEMA, the Northeast Marine Management Area. We go over to the islands every 5 weeks or so to do monitoring. And on Redonda, it's every 3 months. So what does this monitoring entail? So we have basically bait stations on these islands. We have a total of 160 bait stations in the NEMA, and we have 39 on Redonda. So these bait stations, we put in poison and non-poisonous bait, and this bait is designed to kill and help us to detect whether rats and mice have gotten back onto the islands. We have done a lot of work with eradicating the rats and mice and so on, a lot of money, a lot of energy, so we don't want them to come back on, get proliferate to the point that they become a problem again. So every 5 weeks, we go out there, we do our monitoring, we check the stations to make sure that there are no signs of, say, bite marks on the bait, specifically rat and mice, because we'll have other creatures eating it. But we don't want to see rats and mice signs, like droppings, bite marks, footprints, that kind of thing. So once we have checked the bait, we'll replenish the bait because we need to have the poison there. So just in case they get back on, they may reach the stations and basically find the bait, eat it, and die. We just want to get rid of them. So you don't need much qualifications to do this job. Really and truly, what I would suggest, you have to be an observant person, because although we're talking about the bait stations where the rats and mice can come to, that doesn't mean that they're always going to go to the stations. So we have to look, make sure we observe the environment for, say, bite marks on the barks of plants, droppings along the trails, and that kind of thing. So if you want to get involved, just all you need to know is that if you're a lover of the outdoors, and as Eli and the others have been speaking about, the beautiful scenery you can see on these islands, that's all you need. So you can actually get in contact with me, and you can join us as volunteers. Oh, let me add. And so, yeah, this is a I'm probably the only person in Antigua known as an invasive species officer, but we also have people who come out to volunteer. We have teams going out to Green Island and so on, just spend a few hours on the offshore islands doing the work. So if you want to come out and see what's in store, contact me.
Thank you for that, Nathan. Sorry, you were like volunteers, but it sounded like volunteers, question mark, not volunteers, full stop. So that's why I wasn't quite sure. And we have a couple of those volunteers in the audience, man. I feel like they can wave their hand. If you've been out to the offshore islands, Miss Hunt is playing shy, all right? And yeah, as you can see in the pictures Nathan has on the slide, it's not only the invasive species stuff as well. You know, he gets a little snake monitoring in. He does a little outreach and education. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, he has more to add. Oh, okay.
Yes, also we do a little work on Redonda for guinea grass. So we're trying to control the guinea grass colonies that have been showing up on the island. So we use a technique called soil solarization. So basically we take a material like pond liner, tarpaulin, and we cover the guinea grass. So the idea is that you're basically depriving the guinea grass of what it needs to grow. So you have water, carbon dioxide, direct sunlight for photosynthesis. So of course, since it can't get that, it will die off, but you add a little extra because imagine lying down underneath a tarpaulin in direct sunlight, how hot it can get. So the heat is supposed to basically kill off the guinea grass and kill the seeds. So what we do, once we do that, we wait about a year, so we do monitoring on it just to see the progress. We go back in a year or so, make sure it's gone. So the thing about nature is that once you have killed off what is causing a problem, nature can basically replenish itself, as what we have seen on Redonda with removal of the goats and that kind of thing. So once the guinea grass is removed, nature will step in and basically recover from the damage that the guinea grass has done. So basically we'll be continuing monitoring this, the spread of the guinea grass, making sure we control it for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Nathan, for that. And up next, we're jumping from the field, and now we're going into the office because we're going to Ms. Manifa Thomas, who sometimes joins us in the field, but we're going to Ms. Manifa Thomas, who is a financial consultant. And what does that have to do with the environment? Let's find out.
All right, good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you to EAG for the invitation today. I will say that I agree with Shana that there are people outside of the office, and then there are people who are in the office. And I take great pleasure in being in the AC. I take great pleasure in being in the AC. So I'm just joking, but seriously, I do like AC. Seriously, there are many aspects to accounting that could be beneficial to the environment. I have had the privilege of working in accounting for the last 15 years. I did my first degree in it, and I remember the very first moment that I got a balance sheet balance. We didn't have Excel, we were doing things manually, and I was like, yes, this brings me joy. I don't know if you've ever done a balance sheet before, but getting it balanced manually is the best feeling ever. And I was exposed to EAG probably in 2021, and I thought I knew accounting, but I remember one of my very first meetings with EAG staff, and we were doing QuickBooks training, and I was like, oh my gosh. It was layers upon layers of things that I needed to know, and my mind was intrigued. They were freaking out. I was freaking out. But at the end of the day, I found joy in knowing that just because I'm not out in the field doing what he's doing or doing what they're doing, I could still contribute. And so if you have any sort of interest in accounting, there is a place for you in the environment field. As I said, my experience over the last 15 years, I've been working with QuickBooks, which is an accounting software. So if you have any interest in that, you would definitely need to have an accounting software experience. QuickBooks, I find, is the most easiest one. It's very user-friendly. There are QuickBooks training that you can even get in Antigua. Also, you would need a degree in accounting. I did my degree in financial accounting. There are other aspects. Also, if it is that you're interested in the nonprofit side, it's very different than the profit side of things. Obviously, for businesses, they're seeking to make profit. For nonprofit organizations, they're trying to ensure that the monies that they get, they're accountable. So if you are interested in accounting, one of the qualities that you have is that you need to be accountable. It sounds weird, accountable, but you have to be accountable. People are giving you their books, and you have to be able to say, yes, this is right, no, this is wrong. And if it is that you're signing off on something, you have to ensure that you've done your due diligence. Also, you have to have a keen attention to detail. It is not as exciting as being in the sun and the beaches and seeing the sunsets, but every single aspect of this entire world, there's somebody who's doing the, can't say the dirty work, the very clean work. Somebody's doing it. You look at the millionaire, he has an accountant. You look at the person who's selling bread and cheese, they have somebody who's saying, we didn't make enough money, we can't pay payroll, right? So no matter where you are, there's somebody that needs somebody to say, yes, our job was done well because we have enough money to do whatever it is that we have to do. Outside of that, I would also say that you have to be willing to communicate with persons who you're working with, internal and externally. You have to have good communication skills. You also have to be willing to learn about the industry. I worked in insurance at first, and then retail, and also with a holding company. So the thing I love about accounting is, although we're in the back in the office, I have the ability to move from industry to industry to industry, just because of the very fact that the accounting principles remain the same. All right, so if you are interested in the field, it might not have been something that you thought would be part of a green job, but it is. You can speak to me at the end. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Monifa. As somebody, as y'all know, when you get into third form, it's science or everything else, right? And as somebody who had to go through that, I deeply regret never taking any accounting courses, because like Monifa said, she was freaking out, we were freaking out. I'm like, why do we have accounts? What is a credit and a debit? Like, if you can, anybody scientific, take some kind of accounting course. Trust me. This is not the camera. Trust me, don't you miss that opportunity, because like Monifa said, accounting is in everything, and at some point, somewhere, you're going to have accounts. So up next, we are now going, we were in the office in the AC. Where are we going now? I think we're going on the gallery now with an easel and a hammock. Maybe a little glass of wine, right? But we're going outside the office now onto the gallery, and we're going to hear from Mr. Emile Hill, visual artist.
Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Emile Hill, and I am a visual artist. I'm a visual artist. I teach visual arts, and I do a bit of graphic design as well, which is kind of like a subset of visual arts, and I also happen to teach a little bit of graphic design as well. Now, truthfully, I have a degree in architecture. That's really what I studied, but I have always been very passionate about art, about creating not necessarily beautiful things. I think that's what people usually think art is all about, and it's very trendy to do beautiful things, but art can also be used as a form of activism. It can be used to bring awareness to many different things. And so if you are interested, if you are, first of all, creative, if you're a creative person and you want to bring awareness to environmental concerns, you want people to kind of take notice of what is going on here in Antigua or in the world, environmentally speaking, then you can use your art as a tool for that. I have created, I don't know if pictures are coming up. Okay. Oh, that's a nice picture you have there. Okay. So I have been, because of my closeness with the EAG, I've learned so much about the environment and things around us, and even as Eli was saying, the awesomeness that there's so many unique things about Antigua and Barbuda that I've translated some of that into art. So I have created pieces that talk about the fact that we have this bird that exists nowhere else in the world, but on Barbuda, the Barbuda warbler, that's what we have here. And I also tried to kind of not just use materials that you go out and buy, not only because art materials are expensive, but because it's important to think about sustainability and that kind of thing, and using materials, reusing, recycling materials, and so on. And so I tend to try to use tree bark that's fallen off here or there, or a piece of wood or driftwood that is washed up on shore, and that kind of thing. And so there's that. You can use your art for activism, for teaching. This piece here, I know I don't have much time, but this piece is talking about this sort of protector of the ocean. She's rising up out of the ocean, and she's a bit of a badass. And the idea is that, you've been messing with the ocean so long, humans, and now I'm rising up out of the ocean to come and sort of be its protector or exact my revenge kind of thing. And so once you're a creative person, you can use your art to look at all those different aspects of bringing awareness to things, about, all kinds of things. So that's the art part. Then there's the graphic design area, where I have, again, been very lucky to work along with the EAG. So some of the logos that you see around here, I was lucky enough to design them for them. And as a graphic designer now, you have the ability to just, again, use your creativity to brand, to make your mark, and to kind of just, all right, so this is the EAG, this is their logo, or the eco logo, whatever the case may be. So if you're a creative person, there are many, many, many ways that you can use your artistic abilities to make some money if you're designing things, which is a very practical side of art. But then you can also talk about important matters. You can talk about your environmental concerns, about what's special about Antigua and Barbuda. There's so much that you can do as a visual artist, and I know I will never have enough time to talk about all of it, but if you're creative and you want to continue using your abilities, those are some of the ways that you can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Emile. And I can testify to this. When we are going snorkeling and we're like, okay, we're going under the water now, we're looking at the seagrass and the coral reefs. Emile is on the shore, like picking up driftwood and, getting random things. And then when we're able to see, you couldn't really see it, but I think there was a sea fan in Joel, can you go back to that slide? There's even a sea fan in her, on her shoulders as a part of her armor. So it's always exciting for me to see, what is Emile's brain going to come up with this time? So thank you so much, Emile, for showing about how art can also be a tool to be able to raise awareness about nature and the environment. And so we would like to welcome our last presenter, Miss Aaliyah Tuitt, who is a technical data officer with the Department of the Environment. So now, we were on the gallery. Now we're taking off our home clothes. We're putting on our good clothes, and we're going to a government office. So, you can't wear certain things in there. So we're going to the government now, and we're excited to hear her perspective. Welcome her, please.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. So, as Shanna said, my name is Aaliyah Tewitt, and I'm a technical data officer at the Department of Environment. Just a quick backstory as how I got there. I went to the Antigua Girls High School, and I also went to the A-levels department at the Antigua State College. And between those both schools, I chose subjects that I was interested in. So I did geography and environmental science because the business subjects did not interest me at all. And then I went on to the Midwestern State University, where I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in geosciences with a concentration in environmental science. And now I'm also enrolled in a master's program at the University of West Florida, where I'll get my master's in environmental science. So as a technical data officer, what do? We collect a lot of data, from data on gender to data to maybe like how you use your vehicle, how far you're traveling, how often you're going to the gas station, and what this data do, it helps us with our project. So one of our projects, we want to transition to electric vehicles, so that type of information would be helpful to us. We also use the data we collect to inform decisions, as well as create reports. So if you guys know of the SDGs, which are the Sustainable Development Goals, which we have to achieve by 2030, there are environment-related goals and there are indicators which we have to report on. There are also our nationally determined targets, NDCs for short, where we have to update every 5 years and report on how we are planning to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So we collect a lot of data regarding those, and the data we collect, it can be going out into the field. So we have drones where we can collect data on mangroves, so we can see the mangrove health. Maybe there's an area we need to restore. We also do water quality testing. We work with the analytical services, so we'll go to the different waterways or the beaches and we test the water with different equipment, and then they test it in the lab and bring the results back to us. We also collect data by maybe surveys and speaking to people. What else? We collect a lot of data, and the data help us to do these reports. What I would say you need in this field is an advanced university degree in any STEM-related field would be helpful. It gives you that background knowledge. And if you're also interested in IT, because we collect all this data, we need to know how to store it, how to analyze it, and how to display it. So right now we have 2 online platforms, and we need people to manage that, like the back end. So we still need IT. In addition to advanced degree in IT, I would say teamwork. As much as you don't like group work, you have to work with people. We also strong on communication, written and speaking, because we do a lot of presentations. So I went to COP, which is the Conference of the Parties. It's an international conference. We also do, what else do we do? Well, presentations and communication just from speaking with stakeholders. So we have to get this data from other agencies. We have to talk to people. We send a lot of emails. So communication is good, teamwork is good. And I'll just also say you have to know how to apply your skills. So even if you don't have the experience, like I'm in Rotaract and I'm a director, so I had to plan projects. So that also helped me in my work. I had to speak to the different members, and that helps with communication as well.
Thank you so much. And now we have gotten to the end of it, and we've heard a little bit about what each of these persons does, the skills, the qualities that you need to have. And I've also heard from them a lot about the other job fields that we also require. So we heard about we need people in IT. We need people, anybody can tell me what else we need people in? Finance. In the lab. Journalists. We need everybody, basically, right? And so I'm going to open the floor for some questions. And lest we forget, next slide, Janella, that there are some gifts or prizes up for grabs. So are there any questions from the audience and online? Yes, there's one. Okay, there's 2.
Go ahead. So for Mr. Mussington and Miss George, what would you say are some skills that you needed to enter the fields that you're in, and some skills that you've acquired since you started?
5, 6, yes. Testing. Thank you, because I actually forgot to reference that. Told you guys I had notes. So ordinarily, if you see an ad for a journalist in the newspaper or somewhere else, it would ask for a degree in communication or related field. Truthfully, not so much. Journalism is across a wide sector. You could study science, sports, you could have a bachelor's degree in health, and you can be a journalist because these are areas that journalists cover. Interestingly, most of the people, including myself, who I've met in the newsroom and who start off as journalists, we don't have degrees. Okay, so most of us from high school, we just head in that direction. If you like to talk, if you like to write, you should probably try it out. If you go to an interview, let's say you apply for one of those jobs, and they're impressed. You don't have a degree, a bachelor's degree, probably come with your CXCs, and they find you're well-spoken, you're knowledgeable, they would give you a try. So they'd put you on an internship or probation, and depending on, how it is that you perform, you're likely to get a job. Because the thing with journalism, unlike other professions, is there's constant training. So even if you don't have a degree, you know that you can apply for training here, there, and everywhere and build up your resume. So certificates, courses, also online courses. I think one of them is allison.com. And I mentioned graphic design and videography. You go on there, free courses. If you want the certificate, you pay for it. So that's one. Another thing I wanted to point out, not because you're good at speaking or you're good at the English language, that doesn't mean that you can be a journalist, not even, if you are a good author. Depends on what it is that you're writing. Because journalism requires a certain skill set. You need to be relentless. I think that was the word I was looking for when I chuckled earlier, because it is very difficult for people to tell you no. For you to internalize that. You come with your good intentions and you say, hey, I'm calling because I want to do an interview on this, and you're passionate, especially when you just get into the field. You're very passionate. You figure, I'm going to get this great story. And they're like, no, I don't want to talk. And you're like, oh, okay, so what do? So you have to be quick thinking, and you have to be able to adapt. So, okay, I don't get the story from this guy down the road. Maybe I get it from somebody else. And I was saying yesterday as an example, people often say, because I used to be, recently, the newsroom supervisor and social media manager at Observer. And oh my God, nobody get cursed out like the journalists. It's damned if you do and damned if you don't. Because what people see as an end result is a story that is perhaps one-sided or it doesn't tell the full picture. Because a journalist, especially if you're in a daily newsroom, you have an output, right? If my editor wants 2 stories from me by the end of the day, and I'm thinking large, because I'm a large thinker, right? If you give me a topic, I have a whole documentary going in my mind. It's not a day thing. It's not even an hour's thing. Sometimes it's not a month thing. And what people expect from us is that we will replicate what BBC and CNN does. BBC and CNN has teams of people. BBC and CNN can take months, a year, to put out their grand documentaries. People expect us to do it in a day. And I think that is why we need online websites that are dedicated. So in addition to the general news site that I have an online website, Odadley Unplugged, and all I write there is environmental news. News about climate change, the people who make things possible, the people who hold us back, like the politicians, because the stories need to be told. And it's all towards, as Mr. Mussington said, allowing us to live better lives. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay, let me give you the straight-up technical part of it. Your career path, it's in the STEM field. So you'll have to have the basic requirements in terms of your STEM subjects, physics, chemistry, biology, environmental studies, that sort of thing. Your degree, my degree was, first degree was in chemistry and biology. I then, in the advanced stages, used environmental management, and environmental studies and resource management. Now, the higher you get, you will come to realize that being multitasked and being able to understand the nitty-gritty in several areas is very critical. There is a severe shortage for technical people in the STEM areas. What we're seeing more and more in the secondary school, is more persons are going towards the business areas than in the STEM, purely STEM subjects. And we do have a need for technicians like that. Whenever there's any big project in Antigua or anywhere else, you will hear about an environmental impact assessment. You need to have these pre-studies in order to do your feasibility. More often than not these days, we are having to bring people from elsewhere. We just don't have enough, and so there's room for that. Okay, having said all that, let me tell you a simple thing that if I had known that when I was in secondary school, I would cuff myself. Going to university and all that, and even coming through school, there's only one thing you need to learn. One thing really, and that is how to learn. Because once you learn how to learn, there's no area later on in life that you cannot master. All right? The other thing that's very important, test out things. Ms. Spencer talked about her lab and internship and so on. While I was in State College, my 2 summers, I did internships. I did an internship at West Indies Oil Lab, and I also did an internship at the Food and Technology Lab where Ms. Spencer is. What that does, it gives you the hands-on and experience as to whether you really want to be in that area. In State College as well, I also, in order to help pay the bills and so on, I did a stint in terms of teaching maths at a private school. What it did, it helped you understand hands-on. But at the end of the day, even going to university, you realize if you have the interest and the drive and you know how to learn, people tell you about the University of YouTube, yes. Trust me. Trust me about that. So be inspired, have that thirst for knowledge and want to learn, and go and test out hands-on. Mm-hmm. And that's the best thing I can tell you in terms of moving forward.
I really like what you said about learning how to learn. Because once you do that, you're unstoppable, right? And like he said, we have a serious problem, even us with EAG. One of the things we want to see is we always try to offer up our opportunities to locals first. But if there's no locals with the qualifications to apply, we go regional next, and then if not, we need these technical experts here in Antigua. We have another question here.
I have a question for Mr. Wilson. We have a specific problem in Antigua with the giant African snail. I just want to know your view on what's the best way to deal with them, for them as an invasive species. I just want to know any points you have in regards to the giant African snail.
So basically the giant African snail is vulnerable to salt and that kind of thing. So it can be controlled by using salt, and as far as I know, the Plant Protection Unit is asking that people collect giant African snails and basically bring them to them. One thing we do when we're going to the offshore islands, we have that as a concern also. So what we do, we make sure we clean off our shoes, that kind of thing, make sure we scrub the soles of our shoes, make sure we don't have anything on our clothes that could bring over the seeds and so on. Make sure there's no mud. So that's one of the things that we, like even spreading it on the mainland. Maybe you're in an area with infested with giant African snails. Make sure your shoes are clean. When you're going back to where you are, maybe you don't have it there, you can do something like that.
And also, I just have one more. I noticed that they, like, let's say you don't have snails in your yard, but a car comes in and they don't know that the snail got somewhere on the car or something. How is it that they spread so quickly? I just noticed that they don't need to really breed male, female.
So they seem to have a stage where they're just basically concealed and then they just pop up out of nowhere, because I do remember there was a similar situation over where I live. I would see them in the area, close by, nowhere near me, and then next thing you know, overnight, you see them pop up. I don't really have the solution for that. I think plant protection would more be able to help you with that situation.
Shanna, could I add something to that quickly? Just thinking outside the box, right? Would you ever consider lobster or conch invasive?
No, I wouldn't.
They can be, but you know why they're not?
Why?
Because we eat them. So, in answer to the question, the problem we're having with invasive, and invasive comes into a territory. The reason it's a problem is because it doesn't have the controls which will keep it down, its population down. That's how ecosystems work. You have to have control. They're here because there are no controls for them. So the only way we're going to solve that problem, and the same for any other invasive, is to find that selective pressure that will keep down their population. That's the academic way of thinking of it. But if you find a good use for it, let's say we eat it, or find a market for it for doing something else. Take the sargasso weed. If you find a market where you can create something else with it, there now becomes a demand for it. And once there's a demand, there's a pressure on it to control the population. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yes, so another thing, remember when you see an African snail, don't resist the urge to bam, because then, you know, their eggs are going to get in their shoes, and in your shoes, and then next thing you know, in your household, you know. And yeah, another fun fact is that, you know, when African snails meet up each other, they can actually change their sex so that they can reproduce, which I think is really cool, but it's because I'm a scientist. But yeah, if I buck up with Nate, and if I was a male and another male, one of us just, you know, switch up, and then we have our babies, right? Which I think is very cool. And just to note that Plant Protection Unit actually has a number. You can call them on 764-1255. Funny enough, I remember when I was in State College, that was when African snails were just coming, and one of the things we did for a field trip was to go and pick them up in Bowlands. Janella will remember, she was in the same class as me. Y'all had to do that? Not yet. No, Ms. Hunt had to do it, but that was when they were first coming, and it's actually kind of sad and crazy that they're still going, but that's how invasives work, and that's why we have to come up with other ways to keep their numbers down. We have a question from YouTube. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, we have a question two questions actually from Petra. So the first one is for everyone on stage, would you guys be willing to share your opportunities in the secondary school employment school fair? I don't know what that is. So.
Okay, so would y'all be willing to share your opportunities with the secondary school employment fair?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we got some yeses. What's the next question?
And then I think this would be more towards Nathan and probably Elisha, right? How important is volunteering in your various fields? So how important is volunteering between you guys for invasive species and for being a journalist?
Volunteering. Well, we'd like to pay people to work, but we always accept volunteers. Mr. Mussington said something that I think rings true for media workers as well. We don't have any journalists. Half of our newsrooms are non-nationals. They come from Jamaica, Barbados, Dominica. It is a struggle to get journalists. So we welcome volunteers and interns, but ultimately what we want to do is to train people and find people who are passionate about journalism and hire them.
So volunteering, it's very important in our line of work because we are a non-governmental organization, so we don't really have access to a lot of funds to basically employ people to do invasive species management. So basically anyone who loves the outdoors and so on, they are welcome to come. You get to kill 2 rats with 1 poison bait, basically. So yes, volunteering is very important for us.
Yeah, and I think as Mr. Mussington would have alluded to as well, volunteering, especially when you're at this age, is a very important tool. Because when you start writing up your resume, sorry, I have to give this story. There's a guy named Mackay Robertson who is an amazing gentleman. He works for the Department of Environment. And I remember he was like president of Interact, and he was all these things. And when I was in State College, I was like, why is this guy always in everything? Like, why is he volunteering with this and volunteering with that? And then I got to university and I realized that my resume was very, very scanty. And I was like, oh, that is why he was doing all of those things. So trust me, the volunteering, the internships, it makes a big difference once you start writing your resume and your curriculum vitae. We're going to go to our next question.
I have a question for Mr. Wilson.
You spoke about the process of controlling the guinea grass, like covering it with materials such as tarpaulin to prevent sunlight and water. What was the name of that process?
Soil solarization.
Soil solarization. Okay, thank you.
So this is kind of like a general question because it's relating to geography. How would you say that geography applies to your job, and like what other job fields relating, like physical, would you recommend?
To geography?
Yes.
I would think Aaliyah should answer this question first because I remember that she did geography in school, so I'm going to let her do it first.
So geography is basically how people interact with the environment. So having that background knowledge will be helpful in any field, to be honest. I don't know. Yes.
All right, you know, one thing that nobody's talked about today, and after all, this is not just for you kids here who are, you know, in a very, very good school. I mean, in Antigua, we have all kinds of schools, and we haven't talked about cash, right? Like, what do you want a job for? Isn't it for cash? I mean, you can volunteer. But at the end of the day, one of the reasons that people leave Antigua is because they're looking to get paid more money somewhere else. They think that the opportunities for looking after their family, for looking after their elderly parents who don't have savings, it's all about cash, right? And that's what we're doing here today. We're trying to tell you, listen, there's cash in eco jobs. Today, I got off the phone with somebody earlier on who was looking for a boat captain. The type of boat, and this is an Antiguan-owned boat, Antiguan-registered boat. They want a captain who's knowledgeable of the geography, knowledgeable of boats, obviously. They're going to pay $500 a day for that job, okay? Now, in my business, you know, in sail, we have so many different types of boating in Antigua, you know? Boats, the most expensive boats here are not actually Antiguan vessels. They're here for 4 months of the year. You know, $300 million for a boat I saw in English Harbor last week. There are lots of Antiguan kids who are now working on these boats around the world. The starting wage is about $150 a day, starting wage, right? You don't have to go to university to get that job, right? So let's just think. Poorest neighborhood, I don't know where that is, but let me just say, we have neighborhoods in Antigua where mostly the people living in those homes are migrants. Let's say you don't have to necessarily call them migrants, but they could be originally from the Dominican Republic. They don't speak English. Their kids have gone to school and managed to get through school. Those kids, if they have an interest in our country, the things I talked about earlier on, the beautiful environment we have here, the beautiful geography, the rich history, that's all they need. They don't need a university degree. They need to have that interest and that understanding. And the jobs in tourism right now, there's so many fantastic jobs in sailing, in scuba diving. Yesterday, I don't know if you heard it in the news, somebody died on a scuba diving trip. This is a tourist trip, right? On that boat, there were no Antiguans, right? We have a crazy shortage of good boat people, guides. I mean, even things like bartenders. You'd be amazed. Tourism is full of really well-paying jobs if you have the passion and the interest and are able to tell a story. And that's why I said to you, follow Gervais. My Instagram is Adventure Antigua. Follow that. You know, there's lots of education that you can partake in that will add to your resume, right, very easily without spending lots of money. And like I said, there's lots of opportunities in tourism. It's not just about the technical eco things, but if you embrace ecology and those things we talked about, the jobs are out there.
Yes, we have quite a few more questions, so we're going to go here next.
Okay, my question is for Mr. Hill. How do you get in the zone when you create art, and how do you keep inspired and create pieces that are meaningful but still look amazing?
Okay.
Those were two very good questions. I
Yeah.
feel like she might have won a prize.
Just for a good question, that's good.
I know.
Okay, for me, I don't really believe in the zone thing. I try to treat it as a job as much as possible. Yes, of course, there's some days that you're just not in the mood, right? But in terms of ideas and things like that, I'm obsessed. I obsess about things, so I'm always thinking about art and art and art all the time. So I just try to write down ideas as they pop up. And so I have a library of ideas that I've written down on my phone. And so whenever I do have the time to get to work on something, I just check the library and I just start working on one of those things. So there might be something that is very pressing at the time that I feel I feel seriously inspired about, that I really need to create something right now about it. But I try to be as organized as possible and just have that list of ideas written down and just keep checking back with that as often as I need to. So I try to be practical about it and not go based on emotion. Because if you go based on emotion, then you don't do anything half the time. Right.
And how do you keep improving your skills?
Do you know, that's the really cool thing. If you just keep doing it, you just keep getting better. Like, if you just keep doing it, and you have to get better. It's just practice. It's all about practice. And YouTube videos help, but practice really does. Practice is it. That's it for me.
I'm going to give her the bottle.
Okay. I think she should get a shirt.
You think she should get the shirt?
Because she asked Emil the question, and he created
And he
that
created,
logo.
she should get something Emil did,
Yes,
ain't it?
I agree.
Good choice. That's the one I have too. The next question is right here in the front.
So my question is for Ms. Tuitt. You mentioned your research on green cars. I would like to ask which data that you used. Were you using test data from cars that came in, or were you using old data from gas-powered cars to determine something?
Okay. Me. Hi. Is it working? Oh. Well, I guess you can say it's a both. So we use data from Transport Board and Customs, like how many, what's the right term? ICE vehicles, internal combustion engines we import. We also, well, when you go to license your vehicle, they take stuff about mileage and so we use that data as well. We use data from the car companies, how much vehicles they're importing. And at the Department of Environment, we have, when we started the project, we had 2 electric vehicles. So the purpose for those were when we use them, we need to track the data, where we're going, how long we're staying, how long we charge the vehicles for, and then we use that data. Right now we have 5, I think. And there's also a company here, Mega Power, that sells electric vehicles, so we get data from them as well. So it's just different types of data we use.
Thank you, Aaliyah. We're going to go to our next question. Who's here? One of the few gentlemen that are here today.
Now, I've been aching to ask this question because I am pursuing a career in artificial intelligence, and it's becoming something in our day and age that's been just growing over time. And most people look at it in a negative way, but I'm trying to hopefully implement it to make it positive towards the environment. So I'd want to know how far green jobs can be pushed with the use of artificial intelligence.
To give you an idea, straight up, those of us who do field work, you have to go out there with your notepad, and especially if you're underwater sometimes, and you are counting and so on, all right? The worst part of it is then the several hours, sometimes days, sitting down and analyzing that data that you pull in. So if you can have an app that can say, recognize different things, and you just have to point the camera in it or just click, 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 then, and do the analysis for you afterwards, that would be great. there's a lot of potential there in terms of data processing, analysis, even storage in terms of information. Let's say you've been in this field for years. You've been looking at a particular area, and you want to be able to map the changes, to explain the changes, to see what is going on. The best way of doing it, the most efficient way of doing it may be getting that raw data crunching done, not with a human brain, but with AI.
Okay, so in relation to, this is on, right? Okay. In relation to what Mr. Bussington said in terms of collecting data, that is something very, very important because data drives all our decisions. One of the issues that we have in the Caribbean and in Antigua and Barbuda is that there is no data. Sometimes the data is in a drawer somewhere. It's written. You can't get it. If I want to write a story on the impacts of sargassum seaweed, right, over time, because it showed up when, 2011, I don't have any data to work with. I have to be going around begging Department of Environment, hey, you all have anything? Going to the other guy, begging him. So I think AI plays a very important role in the collection of data that can help every single one of us in the environmental field. One, to create better stories, to write better stories, to make better policy decisions. And it's always good when we as a people go to the government, not just saying, oh, you know, this is happening, you need to do that. We have the information because someone created a software that got us the data. We can now say, hey, we can prove that the sargassum seaweed killed 100,000 pelagic fish within this time period. This is a serious issue. You need to deal with it.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a bottle because that was a very cool question. Come for it. And I'm also giving it to you because I know the things that AI can do and I need to stay on your good side. We have a question from YouTube.
Yes, we do. So since we're on the topic of data, this is towards Aaliyah. How important is data collection in your daily work? And another question would be the biggest challenges you have in collecting data.
Absolutely important. Oh, sorry.
Oh. I think, you're answering the second part of the question, right? Yeah, go ahead. John will go and then Aaliyah. You're not
absolutely important because you're being asked to make judgment calls, give explanations for certain things. You cannot come to a conclusion or give predictions which is not based on sufficient data. You will be wrong. So the more data you have, the better you're able to analyze and the better conclusions you can have in terms of management.
Okay. So for how important it is, he already answered it. So we use it to inform our decisions, as I said, and we are party to several multilateral environment agreements, and we need to report to them on how we are achieving our NDC targets, which I've spoken about, as well as our SDGs, which we're supposed to achieve by 2030. So having the data is very important. The challenges, as mentioned before, is it may not be available all the time, or it may not be available in the format you need it, so you would have to take that and try to fit it into the report that you need to do. Some of the agencies, they may not collect data all the time, there might be gaps or all kind of different reasons, but what we're trying to do now is to work with these agencies to see how we can collect this data, even if we won't have information from 19, how long, at least we'd have some type of information for the future. So we have MOUs with like stats, and we work with them to build their data collection and data management policies.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add that when it comes to the lab, we have collected a significant amount of data because we are analyzing and testing samples almost every day. And so when it comes to water monitoring and food monitoring, we have a substantial amount of data. And I actually, for my research project, for my master's, I actually used the data that we collected at the lab to look at the types of food that we have, the types of food that hotels produce and how safe they were. And from that, I was able to do a research project using that data and to show that, okay, certain hotels may have to look into their food safety and their quality assurance further to improve that. So when it comes to data collection, it is very important. Even when I had to go through all the data from the past and previous years, it was very difficult because of how the data was collected and the format that it was in. So when it comes to data collection, is very important.
So in the invasive species monitoring line of work, yes, the data is also very important. So to give an example, I had mentioned eradications. So we had an eradication in 2021. How much did it cost, Shana? It was around 50,000 US? Yes. Yes, so it's very expensive to do an eradication. So what we do when we have a suspicion that an invasive species has gotten back onto an island, we have to do investigations. We can't jump up and say, oh, we need to do an eradication. We have to figure out how widespread the infestation is before we do something drastic about it. So yes, for us, data is also very important.
Okay, so, and I will just wrap that part up by yesterday, we spoke about, somebody had mentioned about the fact that data basically allows you to back up your chat, okay? You're not just talking in a vacuum. You're not just pulling something out your imagination. You have the stats, you have the information, you have the numbers to back up your chat. So when hypothetically somebody says, oh, why can't I cut down all these mangroves to put up my hotel? You can tell them, these are the reasons why, and these are the things that are going to happen if you do so. And we're going to have our very last question for the evening, for the day. Go ahead.
Afternoon, everyone. Miss Tweet, you mentioned that you want to move the country forward to electric cars rather than gas-powered vehicles. So my question is, how do you plan to motivate the population of Antigua and Barbuda to move towards electric cars?
I guess I will say education. So that's actually on one of our projects, the SLIM project, which is the Sustainable Island Mobility Project. Yes, we have a lot of acronyms. And they actually did a whole marketing campaign. So if you follow us on Instagram, you can see there's information there on the transition. They're also trying to create a platform where people can go on to and see the different data they're collecting, how it's beneficial to us, etc.
Thank you, everybody. Unfortunately, that was gonna have to be our last question. For the people who asked questions, I marked your faces. I'll give you your prizes after. But what we are going to do now is transition to lunch. And again, don't feel bad. You'll be able to sit and have lunch with these experts. I realize nobody had any questions for Monifa, you know. I didn't like that, but I'm sure y'all have them written down and are waiting until lunch to get the opportunity to have a deep conversation with her, right? So we'd like to thank everybody from the Antigua State College, from Abbott, Antigua Barbuda Institute of Technology, UE 5 Islands, who I assume is online, and everybody else that is on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming and tuning into the second annual Green Jobs Symposium. And we hope you're inspired. We hope you've learned a lot. Y'all have learned a lot? Yes. And y'all see jobs that you could do? Yes, okay, great. So we'd like to thank our panelists again. Please stay up on the stage because we'd like to take a picture. And then once you're done, you can transition to the buffet line. Oh, everybody eyes open when I said food. You could transition to the buffet line there and then sit and talk with whoever you would like to and, you know, try to cement some of those internships, all right? Thank you so much, everyone. Good day.